What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Limpnoodle YouTube channel. Here we are again today. We've got our 376 all put together with blower on it. I think the last time we left off, you guys, we were putting some heads together. As you can see, we are all back together with that. She's looking sexy, boys. We do have a few possible issues, but I'll get back to that when I know exactly what's going on. For now, let's just check this out. So this is our engine, right? When we left you guys, we were doing the valve springs and the heads, and we showed you how to do all that. So we have this on an engine run stand right now, and guys, I'm going to give you a quick little look at this engine run stand. So this is literally, I bought this a little while ago, and we've run 2 engines on it so far, but this is the cheapest engine run stand I could come across without building my own. It did come with gauges. It had temp gauge, an RPM gauge, and it had an oil pressure gauge, but we kind of swapped that out for something else. It had no I mean, it came with directions, but they were very useless. This thing was like 400 bucks. And the way it sits here, and it came in a box, you put it all together, it's not hard. There's actually a video on YouTube, a guy that I followed that did it. So it's pretty easy to do. This is how you can kind of see it's all put together. But we made some little custom motor mounts here. Real quick, we just slapped them up together. And yeah, so I threw an old, I have a 80 gallon per hour, gallon per minute pump here. So we use that on a little jerry rig the wiring up. And you guys get to see more on this because we will be firing this engine up on this stand eventually. So keep an eye out for this. If you guys want these, I think I bought this through Summit. It was 400 bucks. Walmart does sell one. Walmart sells one that's even cheaper yet, but they were out of stock when I looked. And I have a feeling that wasn't coming back in stock anytime soon. But, so yeah, engine stand is cool. We'll show you guys all about that. So as far as the whipple goes, as far as we got on the engine here, we put the heads on the motor. We used our Earl's head bolts and torqued them down. And the Earl's head bolts, they're a hardened, reusable bolt. They don't torque the way a torque to yield would with degrees. A lot of the stock head bolts, you got to torque to a specific torque spec and then go, so many degrees over that. These ones are just a straight up torque specs. They're 3 stages. You go 30 pounds, 45 pounds, and 75 pounds. And that's all listed in their directions. So you got that going for you. Now, once we got the heads on and torqued down, those little, by the way, those little bolts on the end of the head are 25 foot-pounds. I think the stocks are 22, so there's that. If you need the specs for them, there they are. They do come with a little sheet. But we put the heads on, we put the rockers in, we put the push rods in, we torque those down in sequence. They're 22 foot-pounds. And we're still running the stock rockers for these heads. We just put the trunnion upgrade in them so that they'd have more articulation and be a little more durable. We don't need bearings flying off and breaking our motor. So we put those on. We put the valve covers on. We will be painting these valve covers to match all that. Our even though we can't see our valley cover, our valley cover and our timing cover, we will be painting those. And I'll actually probably do a little tortilla. Jesus Christ, a tutorial. We will be doing a tutorial on painting these valve covers. We'll do the swirly just like we did on everything else. It'll look really pretty. We got the old dipstick in here. Speaking of that, this oil pan just keeps on showing me how crappy it is. So I put some fittings on here, but these Widen oil pans, they're a 7-quart pan. It's a pretty nice pan, really. I like the baffling and stuff in it. But we had this issue with this little bolt right here where all the bolts were too long. They'd hit the, the relocation ports. So we had to cut down a stock bolt and put him in there. And then I had to, when I put these fittings on here, these are 12 AN fittings. Their pipes are 10, but that relocation kit came with 12. So I had to actually take and put a wrench on this bottom one and bend him down a little bit because the fittings would touch. They got plenty of space now, everything's sweet, but they didn't fit. So I had to modify that. We had to modify that whole bolt situation. And then to put the dipstick tube in, these guys did not do their research, because that dipstick tube, for one, the tube hits the pickup tube inside the oil pan. It runs straight into it. So I had to cut down the pickup, or the dipstick tube length a bit to make sure it didn't run into that. And then of course the dipstick, you know, the dipstick made it by that just fine without touching it, but they had a piece of baffling in there across the top. It was just a bend for structure, and it would run right into that. I actually put my phone inside the engine to find out what was going on, making sure that dipstick didn't touch anything, and sure enough, it got folded over by that baffle. So we had to cut him out, and then we put it back in, and I could probably insert a clip of that. I might have deleted it, but we had to modify that. So other than that, the stock dipstick length works really good. The dots are in the right spot. It really should work fine. So anytime you guys switch out oil pans, you should really be watching that dipstick to make sure that the marks aren't lying to you. I know that those flexible oil dipsticks, trans dipsticks, those things, as they flex, the dipstick moves. You know, if you have an aftermarket pan, you might have to make new markings or cut your dipstick down or do whatever you got to do to get the oil level where you want it. You got to check that before you put the oil pan on. Okay, but anyway, we got our heads on, our valve covers on, our rockers, our push rods. We put headers on here. These are temporary. I had some shorty headers. The tube runner length is a little too small for what I want to run, but we got our head studs in here. These are super cheap on eBay. Stainless head studs, or header studs rather, and I recommend. Very nice. We got our gaskets in there. They're just stock MLS gaskets. What else did we do here? So we also, this is just kind of sitting on here, but we got to put all the injectors in. We have fittings for the rails put on. You know, the blower isn't actually bolted down. We just kind of set it on here, which is a good thing, because I might have issues and I might have to take that off, and I might have to send some parts in because they sent me the wrong stuff. But you can see underneath there, we do have that gasket, and in the bosses underneath the whipple, we have O-rings too. I read their directions on their LS3 setup, and it said to put the O-rings in and then put the gasket on it. So we're doing it by the book on this one. That header is not going to stay like that. It's just there for the engine stand right now, because it would have run into that motor mount. The rear engine cover on. I'm having troubles with my words today. And we also have a steam vent kit. As you guys can see, I'm really disappointed with the steam vent kit. The design is terrible. It doesn't have anything going across this, so basically it's just steaming off, bam, 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 and then out. And I don't know if I can support that, but I'm going to run it because I spent $80 frickin' on this thing on eBay. It was literally the cheapest one I could find. And man, even the nice ones, the hardline ones, you can buy them from Motion Raceworks, and I think Summit might have them. There's a few different places that sell them, but they're like $200 for a steam vent kit. And even the stock LS ones, you could use those, like an LS1, you could use those, but those are like $100 used. So they're expensive. But I did get this one. It took a minute to figure out just how it went. This is what we came up with, you know, and thank God I have this blower set up, because if this was some other kind of intake, this would look really nasty. I think it looks fine for what it is, but it is what it is. I mean, the fittings are nice. It's all Dash 4 AN stuff, and they come with these nice little billet aluminum ports. They have O-rings underneath, so that's nice. And then it's just Dash 4 the rest of the way with some T's. It's pretty simple, but you know, it does the job, hopefully. We'll find out if we have any issues. We also got some of our sensors in here, so we do have our NOx sensors underneath there. Those hardline kits, this is what I was trying to get to. Those hardline kits will not fit. Let me get a better angle for you guys here. These hardline fits will not fit underneath there. There is no room. I mean, I can barely fit a finger here, so there's no way you're getting a hardline kit underneath there, I don't think. So you might have to resort to something like this, or just make your own, you know, that's a little more evenly vented. But other than that, we have, our sensors. So we have our coolant temp stock. We have our oil pressure. I did find out you can use any stock oil pressure sensor. Gen 4, Gen 3, doesn't matter. The Holley will be fine with it. We're going to use our stock Gen 3 cam sensor. We will just have to go into the ECU. I talked to Holley about it, and they said that I would have to go into the ECU once okay, let me start from the beginning here. Let's not get crazy. So when we go to fire this thing up, first start, when we're all ready, what we'll do is we will go through the wizard on the Terminator X setup, and we'll set this engine up as a Gen 3 24-time reluctor wheel engine, okay? Once we do that and the wizard does its thing, before we start it up, we're going to go into the software and we're going to change that cam sensor information. So we're going to change the crank sensor information to a 58 time, and the cam sensor is actually going to stay the same. That'll be a one-time. That should be a one-time because it's the same. So we'll change the crank sensor information. I do have a 4th gen crank sensor coming, so that's what we need for that. So 4th gen crank, regular cam sensor, regular knock sensors. That is something. Okay, so flip you guys around again. As far as the knock sensors go, I am using the ones in the valley cover, the stock Gen 3 knock sensors, and the plug is different. So I cut the plug off of an old wiring harness so that it plugs in. These sensors are one wire apiece. They ground through the block, and they just have their signal wires here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cut the Holley harness, because it has 2 plugs for each individual knock sensor that usually would go on the side of the block on either side. There's an even and an odd. We're going to take those are each 2-wire sensors. There's a black and a blue and a black and a green. We're going to get rid of the black wire altogether because that's just a sensor ground, and we're going to try to hook up our signal wires to these. So it doesn't matter which one you do, they're both right next to each other, it really doesn't matter. Knock is knock. So 1 wire from each one of those plugs is going to go to here, the black wire is going to get cut off, and it's going to ground through the block. That's the plan. We'll see if that works. That's what Holley, the guys at Holley told me should work, so hopefully we don't even have to deal with that. The only sensor we're going to have to change on this entire engine is the 58-time crank sensor. So that's a big deal. Oh, and you also need, I got this in the mail, I haven't popped it in yet. You also need a map sensor. Okay, that goes in this little plug right here. And I did a 3-bar. If you're gonna do 3-bar, obviously, which I mean, come on. We're gonna do 3-bar. We got a 3-bar GM map sensor with a harness adapter to go to the Holley for the other style map that they have on the harness. So they were kind of expensive. I think they were like 70 or 80 bucks for the 2. But those are going to go in there. So that's taken care of. And this is our intake air temp sensor here. This is a kind of an LS1 style sensor plug. So this I'm going to go either to the junkyard or I can order one online. But I need a pigtail for that. Generally, like on the LS1, they have intake air temp sensors in the math, and so we might have to, like I say, we're gonna go get that off of like a 2001 Blazer. They also sell them online for like 10 bucks, but I might just run to the junkyard, clip one off. We'll see how cheap I feel that day or how much running I want to do. But yeah, as far as sensors go, a quick map sensor buy, a quick pigtail rewire for the knocks, and a 3rd gen crank, or a 4th gen crank rather. So we also have our ATI bouncer on there. You guys saw that. It's not all the way on. It's pressed, you know, a certain amount, but we need to see just where the belt's going to line up before I get too crazy with that. And being as Whipple, not Whipple, actually, that TPS Performance sent me the wrong parts and won't respond to my emails. I got to deal through Whipple, and we're going to see what that's going to cost me or what I have to do to swap out a few spacers, a few parts. We'll just have to see how crappy that is. But this is where we're at, guys. She's on the engine run stand. I do have torque converter and flywheel already here. I had already had the flywheel on the engine, but I wasn't sure. I tried holding the stall converter up there, and I couldn't seem to make it fit because I was at a weird angle. So I set it down here, and I made sure the bolts would go through. Of course, the bolts are not long enough. Neither the ones that came with the flywheel or the ones that came with the torque converter, none of them are long enough. So we're going to have to go get some bolts from Max. Not a big deal. But this is the flywheel that we're going to be running here. It's a TCI, and it's spec'd. That's why we can meet tech if we do decide to bracket race or do whatever. This is kind of nice, even though you should know. If you don't know, now you know, yeah, so that's all ready to just get flopped on. I just want to make sure I got the right bolts for the flywheel. And then, yeah, I don't think anything else is really new. This is just a quick update as to how things are going with this whole situation. So now you know, man. This car is she's getting there, dude. If this whole whipple thing doesn't get me, because I think they're gonna try to screw me here, I'll be drilling out this little fella on the passengers or on the driver's side. So I have a little 10 AN bung coming, and I want to make sure that I have the right drill bit and stuff. But I'm going to be drilling this guy out, knocking all that baffle out of there, getting this hole opened up so we can put on a 10 AN bung. I did the same thing on my S10. It works phenomenally. I did weld that one on, but it was really difficult to get back in here. We struggled on that. So this new one, I'm probably just going to put some RTV at the bottom of the fitting itself and just squish that guy on there, We're gonna go with it. If it pops off one day, it's not the end of the world. We can redo it. So that's what we're going to do with that. And then on the other side, I am just going to go to the oil fill cap. That's why I don't have anything on here right now. I'm going to have, I ordered a baffled oil fill cap with a 10 AN setup on it. And I can actually show you one of those too. If we go over to the old S10 hot rod over here, it'll be the same exact thing. She's leaking, boys. She's always leaking, this one. That low mount turbo setup really sucks as far as scavenging oil goes. But so on here you can see this one, it just goes into place, and then you put a 10 AN fitting in it, and you plumb that on over to the old Motion Raceworks cleaner catch cam down there. And I actually have another one in here. It's just got the wrong thread on it. I accidentally ordered the wrong one day. There's a little closer look in the old AN fitting box, but they're baffled on the bottom to help keep that oil under wraps, because we don't want that going wherever. And then they just take an ORB -10 whatever line you're going to put in. This one has, these threads on it. They're for like an aftermarket valve cover, but they make them that they just go right into the old oil fill. So that's the one we're getting. That's the one we ordered, and she's on the way. I want to thank you guys for watching these videos. If you're following along, please subscribe to these things. Let's make this a big deal. The more subscribers we get, the more awesome videos we can do, the funner videos we can do. I know they're not that crazy right now. We're going to keep trying to get better at it. So I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.